Nikolai's POV. I stared the redhead down as she slowly peeled the flimsy dress off her body, her eyes never leaving my face. She was a petite young woman with full lips and a voluptuous body. I didn't care to remember her name either. All I knew was that she was an omega in the pack, and all she wanted was to be bent over and fucked senseless. I, of course, would oblige. My eyes riveted to her chest as her full tits came into view. I could see she was already aroused by how taut her nipples stood. Hunger rushed through me, and I could feel my cock push through my khakis in protest. Grinning, she approached me, placing one hand on my neck, and began to trail kisses all the way down to my chest. I watched in surprise as she continued to do so, up until her lips were an inch away from my crotch. I grasped her hand firmly, stopping her. I didn't have time for this shit. I just wanted to get it over with. Still gripping her tightly, I pulled her to the bed and flipped her over, spreading her legs apart and unzipping my shorts. Her panties were already wet at the center when I pulled them off. She let out a whimper in pleasure as I opened her up with my fingers before slowly penetrating her. She held onto the sheets for support as I viciously pushed in, moaning with each hard thrust. When I felt my release coming, I quickly pulled out of her, watching as my seed spilled over the sheets. Satisfied, I let her fall onto the bed and walked to the bathroom to clean up. Once in, I scrubbed myself thoroughly with my soap and shampooed my hair. Like always, when I fucked any she-wolf, I felt disgusted and intent on scrubbing away their filth off me. Since I lost Elle, I had never had any connection with any she-wolf, nor did I want to. I knew that some members of the pack had been plotting to get into my bed, but no matter how hard they tried, they would never be able to replace Elle. No one could. I just needed a hard fuck to help me release. Nothing more, nothing less. I paused as I bent to retrieve my khaki after showering. I could hear the distant sound of hooves, the sound of wolves running, and from the foul stench, I knew they were rogues. My brows furrowed as I wondered what rogues could possibly be doing so close to our territory. Almost immediately, Drew mind-linked me. Alpha, rogues close by, ready at your command. That confirmed my hunch. Dumping my khakis for a wider pair of shorts that wouldn't rip when I transformed, I strode out of the bathroom. Get out, I said simply to the redhead as I grabbed my phone and checked the time. It was late enough. The moon stood bright outside, so transformation would not be a problem. What? I heard her stammer. I looked up, glaring at her in irritation. Did you not hear me? My voice was higher now. I saw fear flash briefly in her eyes before it was replaced by a flood of disappointment. Cheeks flushed. She gathered the sheets around herself and huffed her way out of the door. I didn't miss the tear that dropped down her cheeks just before she banged the door behind her. It was all meaningless sex. Why did they always expect more afterwards? Shaking my head, I bounded toward the door, pausing when I came face to face with Drew and Colton. Alpha. They both nodded as they sighted me. I waved off their greeting. Do we have a location? I asked Drew, shifting and already running out the door. North. It seems like they're leaving the city. We'd been trying to gain on these rogues for weeks now, but every time we came close to catching them, it was like they disappeared. The only explanation for this was that they blended in with packs in other territories, as I had no authority there. But why would that be? It made me start to wonder if they were actually working for or with a pack. But who? The only person powerful enough to harbor rogue wolves was Jonas Verbeck. I still couldn't understand it. But would he do that? Rogues were no protected under any law, and most of the time they killed indiscriminately, innocent wolves, humans. My jaw clenched as I remembered the amount of bloodshed from the past week, They had preyed on large numbers of she-wolves and pups. My breath quickened. I could feel the anger surfacing like it always did when I saw things that reminded me of Elle. My wolf growled, desperate for vengeance. Without a word, I took off. The light of the moon hit me, making me feel even more powerful and increasing my strength twofold. I ran until I could no longer hear Drew and Colton behind me. But I didn't bother because they knew where we were headed. I sniffed the air around me. They were close. If only I could catch them this time. The cool wind that came with the night made it easier for me to sniff them out. I frowned. Why on earth were they moving toward the Red Moon pack? I wondered in alarm. Growling, I quickened my pace, rushing forward as I sighted a flash of brown fur ahead. As I gained on it, I saw Drew emerge from behind the trees on one side, and I knew they had taken another routine. I mind-linked Drew and Colton to go after the other two rogues, while I took care of the one present. I bared my teeth at the rogue as we circled each other. As it usually was with rogues, his fur was thicker and longer, and his foul scent was thick in the air. I watched him shrink back in fear as I clawed at him in a split second. Under the moonlight, I was stronger, faster, more lethal. Sensing that it was a fight he couldn't win, he took off. I was hot on his heels in a few seconds, my face contorting with rage when Drew mind-linked me. We lost them, Alpha. I ignored him, following as the rogue disappeared into a cluster of trees. I bounded after him, but it was as though he'd become faster. As I stretched out a limb to grasp him at the fur, he leaped through the air and into the border separating Red Moon from Selene. I let out a deafening growl in anger. After a few moments, I mind-linked Drew to meet me back at the pack. I needed to find out what these rogues were up to and what connection they had with the Red Moon pack.